What's up? I'm Syrobe, back to showcase the highest damage melee weapon in Elden Ring for an intelligence scaling build.
Want to see a magic trick? Good. Abracadabra!
As always, I am never over leveled and never over buff. All my builds are just mathematically correct, as my channel specializes on making everything viable in Elden Ring. This weapon can achieve higher damage than the Dark Moon Greatsword and the Moonveil. The Bastard Stars, along with its superb naming, is an intelligence scaling flail that, thanks to the last few patches, received some much needed buffs. In just a single use of its Ash of War, it deals more damage than a single use of either the Moonveil's Ash of War or the Dark Moon Greatsword's Ash of War. This should be a no-brainer, as it has around 10 total hitboxes that, when used properly, can one-shot Margit with over 7,000 fucking damage. It makes light work of pretty much every boss in this game. One-shotting Morgott as well before his second phase, taking down Radahn before he can even enter his second phase, defeating Mog before he can heal, staggering the fuck out of Malenia and even interrupting some of her attacks, or just casually taking 90% of Radagon's HP in just 2 uses. Like, seriously, this weapon is massively underrated, and if for some reason that still isn't enough to convince you, I saved the best part for last. It fucking jingles. I've discovered a lot of interesting information about this weapon that I never hear anyone talk about, so be sure to watch the video all the way through to catch some surprising facts. But before that, we have officially hit over 100,000 subscribers on this channel in less than a year of content creation dedicated to Elden Ring. There was a slight delay on this video since I wanted to wait until my silver play button finally came in the mail from YouTube so I could share it with you all, as I'm really proud of how far my channel has grown in such a short time, since I do all the research, writing, thumbnails, and editing for these videos myself. And with the Elden Ring DLC coming right around the corner later this year, plus my full-scale VTuber model debut currently in the works, it's safe to say I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, with more frequent Elden Ring videos returning. So be sure to drop a fat fucking like and a massive sub, because this is the beginning of a new era, and I'd love to show you all the batshit crazy theory crafting and build perfecting I have in store very soon. Anyways, when it comes to melee weapons for mages, 99% of players use either the Dark Moon Greatsword or Moonveil, which used to be the best choices up until recently. I'm willing to bet that most people have never even used this weapon, aside from those that probably did so because its name made them exhale air slightly harder than normal from their nose upon reading it. Regardless of when you used it or those that have never used it, none of that matters because it's stronger now than it ever has been. Specifically within the last few patches that I've covered here on my channel, flails have received significant buffs, which gives this weapon the potential for the highest damage output among all other mage weapons. This is mainly thanks to its new scaling buff from patch 1.09. The intelligence scaling of the Bastard Stars is actually an A now, while more popular weapons like both the Moonveil and Dark Moon Greatsword only get B tier scaling for intelligence at their max level, which means for a pure intelligence focused build, this weapon's Ash of War deals more damage than either the Moonveil or the Dark Moon Greatsword, and its melee damage is honestly just as strong, if not stronger, since in patch 1.08, the flails also received a buff that makes them attack faster, a buff that increases their hitbox range, and received faster recovery time, all while power stancing 2 flails at once. I'll get more into the specific build and stats in a bit, but let me unpack exactly what makes this weapon work so well. First off, when using the Bastard Stars, the initial melee hit does massive damage on the weapon's hitbox and leaves a trail of collapsing stars in its wake. It seems like there are about 10 stars in total, which all detonate at random times. This is the part I don't see anyone talk about, because most weapons like the Morgott's Curse Sword, for example, have a fixed pattern for its projectiles exploding from top to bottom each time, so 2 different uses of the Ash of War will always look the same. However, the Bastard Stars is aptly named because not only does it come from an asshole boss, but the explosive projectiles on its Ash of War are fucking random every time. Sometimes you'll have 3 to 4 stars detonate instantly together, and other times it'll detonate one at a time very fucking slowly. And I thought I was just not seeing it right, so I sat here and recorded 10 minutes of footage to make sure I wasn't going insane and that these projectiles didn't have any sort of pattern to their explosion. I promise I'm not insane. The only pattern I think I noticed was that you can tell where the projectiles will be spawned by looking at the random white stars in the purple cloud, which is an indicator that lets you know where the explosions will come from, and that typically more stars seem to always spawn in the initial area towards the startup of the Ash of War compared to the end, which is why sometimes you'll see me angle myself with the free cam where I'm not locked directly onto an enemy so that I can line up the larger clusters of stars from the back towards my target for more damage. Basically aiming in reverse. Long story short, the number of stars seem to remain consistent, but the order in which they explode and the timing of how fast they explode are completely random. I thought I recognized a pattern here and there, but it's so inconsistent that I'm just ruling it as random. Anyways, the dopamine rush from hitting a bunch of stars at once is really like nothing else because the damage output is insane and tops the damage charts when comparing other most popular weapons that mages normally use. I quite literally shred through every boss in just seconds flat with the goofiest fucking weapon and armor setup, which I coined as the Cosmic Jester build because of not only the ridiculous looking weapon and name, but the equally idiotic outfit and appearance that you need to make it work. So let's get into the stats first and then all the items and gear after. The best starting class for this build is the Astrologer class, as we are maxing intelligence as high as possible while still needing to meet some other stat requirements. We get 50 vigor to stay healthy, 20 mind, 16 endurance, 10 strength, 22 dex, and 70 int. These are the only stats that we're adjusting and keeping faith and arcane at their base stats since we aren't using those. These stats along with the following gear and buffs will allow you to achieve the gigamax damage you've seen me deal so far. This build synergizes extremely well with the Mushroom Crown and the Kindred of Raw Exaltation that offers around a 500 damage increase when active, and combined with the Spellblade set, increases the magic damage dealt by your Ashes of War by 2% for each piece, of which we're using 3 pieces for the chest, the hands, and the legs. The other buffs we use are very minimal. The best spell buff is the Terra Magica. This is a spell that when casted persists for 30 seconds, increasing magic damage from any source by 35%. The only drawback is that you have to remain within the spell's radius when the damage is dealt to receive the buff, which means you need to be in the circle when casting the Bastard Star's Ash of War and remain in the circle when the stars explode. The explosion will not receive the increased damage buff, so keep that in mind. But the other buffs we use are the crystal tiers within the physics flask, primarily the Magic Shredding Crack tier for an extra 20% magic damage, and Intelligence Knot tier to take us from 70 base intelligence to 80 to get as much damage from our new A tier intelligence scaling flail as possible. Both of these tiers last for 3 minutes, and trust me, that's more than enough time to kill pretty much everything this game throws at you. On top of these buffs, we have our poison buff that I mentioned earlier from the Mushroom Crown and the Kindred of Rot Talisman. The Crown buff is a 10% increase to all damage, and the Talisman is a 20% increase to all damage types as well. This includes magic damage. Both of these stack and last for 20 seconds total, which works well with the trick I invented a while ago in my mathematically correct poison and Scarlet Rot build. It was in that build that I invented the use of the fetid pots to build up poison in yourself to activate both the Crown and Talisman buffs consistently while still also being able to cure yourself from the poison after, as the buff doesn't get removed when you do. These are the only buffs I make use from in my build, and I'm sure you can add dozens more, but this is more practical and synergizes a lot easier without spending 10 hours pre-buffing before every boss. The other talisman I use are pretty consistent and always need to be these for the most damage possible. Besides the Kindred of Rot Talisman that I mentioned earlier, I also use the Shard of Alexander, giving plus 15% increased damage to your Ashes of War. The Magic Scorpion Charm that increases magic damage by 12%, but increases damage you take by 10%, which I would never use in PvP, but that's irrelevant because this is a PvE build anyways. And lastly, the Stargazer's Heirloom for plus 5 int, just to give us an extra boost of damage because every little bit counts when your weapon is A tier scaling. The setup usually goes like this. Equip the Bastard Stars in your main hand with a staff like the Carrion Regal Scepter in your offhand. Also, in another offhand slot, you can use a second Bastard Stars for power stancing if you have one, just to match the aesthetics, but honestly, you don't actually need to. Despite having very slightly less base AR than the Bastard Stars, it's actually more efficient to just use a default flail or the Knight Rider flail and set them to a magic damage affinity because, again, the 1.09 buff now gives it stronger B tier scaling for intelligence too. It makes the total AR difference negligible as you get access to bleed buildup this way and you don't with the Bastard Stars. You can use either when power stancing, but just keep the Bastard Stars in your main hand so you can use its Ash of War when you need it. Then just put on your goofy fucking Cosmic Jester outfit with the crown and magic buffing clothes, equip all your necessary talisman, and you're good to go. For the buff setup, start with your flask as it lasts for 3 minutes. Cast your spell that lasts for 30 seconds, use your roped fetid pots to get the poison buffs from your crown and talisman, which you can cure with the neutralizing boluses after, and then let it rip. After this simple setup, you will achieve insane amounts of damage. And for another specific fact, when no buffs are active, the initial melee strike does around 1,300 damage, and a single star does around 1,600 damage. But with every buff I used in this video, the initial melee strike does 2,742 damage, and a single star deals 3,645 damage, which just by hitting the initial strike and a single star is already upwards of 5,000 damage. So as long as you hit the initial melee swing and at least 1-star explosion, you will be out-damaging both the Moonveil and the Dark Moon Greatsword. Thank you so much again for 100,000 subscribers, and here's to many more unique and creative Elden Ring builds very soon. And hopefully more news regarding the Elden Ring DLC coming out later this year. So I'll see you in the next video. Peace.